Good evening and welcome back to tonight's podcast. It's Wednesday. It's great to have you here once again. We're going to be talking about King David again. Yes, we're going to be talking about King David and his conquest of Jerusalem and his battles with Moab, Ammon, and Edom. So let's just dive right into it. King David's conquest of Jerusalem is an important event in the Old Testament, specifically in the books of 2 Samuel and 1 Chronicles. Tonight, like I said, we're going to go over an overview of the biblical account of this event using the King James Version. Before David conquered Jerusalem, the city was held by the Jebusites, one of the Canaanite tribes who had resisted Israelite control over the centuries. Jerusalem, which was located in the territory of Benjamin, was a stronghold and was considered nearly impregnable due to its strategic position and its fortifications. The conquest of Jerusalem. This biblical account can be found in 2 Samuel chapter 5 verses 6 through 10 and 1 Chronicles chapter 11 verses 4 through 9. In 2 Samuel chapter 5 verses 6 through 10, and the king and his men went to Jerusalem unto the Jebusites, the inhabitants of the land, which spake unto David, saying, Except thou take away the blind and the lame, thou shalt not come in hither, thinking, David cannot come in hither. Nevertheless, David took the stronghold of Zion. The same is the city of David. And David said on that day, Whosoever getteth up to the gutter, and smiteth the Jebusites, and the lame and the blind, that are hated of David's soul, he shall be chief and captain. Wherefore they said, The blind and the lame shall not come into the house. So David dwelt in the fort and called it the city of David. And David built round about from Milo and inward. And David went on and grew great, and the Lord God of hosts was with him. You see, in this passage, David and his men march against Jerusalem. And the Jebusites, confident in the city's defenses, mocked David, saying that even the blind and the lame could defend the city. However, David successfully captures the city, takes control of the fortress of Zion, and establishes it as his royal capital. He fortifies the city, and it becomes known as the City of David. The conquest is also significant because it marks the establishment of Jerusalem as the political and spiritual center of Israel. David's kingship is affirmed, and he goes on to strengthen his rule. In 1 Chronicles chapter 11, verses 4 through 9, And David and all Israel went to Jerusalem, which is Jebus, where the Jebusites were, the inhabitants of the land. And the inhabitants of Jebus said to David, Thou shalt not come hither. Nevertheless, David took the castle of Zion, which is the city of David. And David said, Whosoever smiteth the Jebusites first shall be chief and captain. So Joab, the son of Zeruiah, went first up, and was chief. And David dwelt in the castle. Therefore they called it the city of David. And he built the city round about, even from Milo round about, and Joab repaired the rest of the city. So David waxed greater and greater, for the Lord of hosts was with him. This account in 1 Chronicles is similar to the one in 2 Samuel, with a few variations. It emphasizes David's role in taking the city, and the fact that his military leader Joab is given the honor of leading the first assault. David's victory solidifies his rule, and the city's fortifications are further strengthened. What is the significance of the conquest? By conquering Jerusalem, David made it the political and spiritual center of Israel. This decision was symbolic, as the city was located in the territory of Benjamin, effectively uniting the northern and southern tribes of Israel. Later, David would bring the Ark of the Covenant to Jerusalem in 2 Samuel 6, further solidifying the city's role as a sacred place. The defeat of the Jebusites marked a significant victory in David's military career, and it demonstrated God's favor in establishing David as king over Israel. The conquest of Jerusalem is a turning point in the history of Israel, setting the stage for David's reign and the eventual construction of the temple by his son Solomon. Now we move on to King David's battles with Moab. They are described in the books of 2 Samuel and 1 Chronicles. Moab was a neighboring kingdom to Israel, located to the southeast of Israel, and has often found itself in conflict with Israel. David's military engagements with Moab were part of his broader effort to expand Israel's territory and secure its borders. David's battles with Moab in 2 Samuel chapter 8 verses 1 and 2 and 1 Chronicles chapter 18 1 and 2. The key biblical passages about David's battle with Moab are found in these two, both of which recount David's victories and the subsequent subjugation of Moab. In 2 Samuel chapter 8 verses 1 and 2 it reads, "And after this it came to pass that David smote the Philistines and subdued them. And David took Metheghamah out of the hand of the Philistines. And he smote Moab and measured them with a line, casting them down to the ground, even with 2 lines measured he to put to death, and with 1 full line to keep alive. And so the Moabites became David's servants and brought gifts." In 1 Chronicles chapter 18 verses 1 and 2, "Now after this it came to pass that David smote the Philistines and subdued them, and took Gath and her towns out of the hand of the Philistines. And he smote Moab, and the Moabites became David's servants and brought gifts." The Bible records that after David had subdued the Philistines and other enemies, he turned his attention to Moab. David defeated the Moabites, making them his vassals. Again, not vessels. This victory is significant because it expanded Israel's territory to the east, securing the land along the Jordan River. The phrase "measured them with a line" refers to a practice where soldiers were divided into groups, with some being executed and others spared. In the case of Moab, David ordered the 2/3 of the Moabite soldiers be executed, while the remaining third were spared and made to serve David. This is a method of dealing with conquered peoples that demonstrates David's military and strategic decisiveness. With 2 lines measured, he put to death. This suggests that David used a form of numerical division, possibly placing soldiers in 2 groups, one of which was executed, and the remaining third of those soldiers were spared and made to serve as subjects of Israel. After this battle, the Moabites were forced, because that's what happens after battles, they were forced to submit to David, becoming his servants and paying tribute to Israel. This tribute likely and probably did include, certain goods and livestock and possibly soldiers for the Israelite army for future endeavors. The Moabites were descendants of Lot, in case you were wondering, the nephew of Abraham, and their relationship with Israel was complicated. At times they were adversaries, as seen here, obviously, but there were also periods of peace and interaction. In the time of David, Moab was a regional power, and David's victory over them helped consolidate his kingdom and ensure security along Israel's eastern border. And today, they still try to fortify their eastern borders and their western borders. They're always under attack. The Bible often emphasizes that David's victories, including those against Moab, were granted by God's favor. In 2 Samuel 8:6, it says, "And the Lord preserved David whithersoever he went." This is a reminder that David's military success was ultimately due to God's blessing. Like anything we do in this world, it has to be with God's blessing, not our own selfish desires. While the Moabites were subdued by David, there were later tensions between Israel and Moab. In 2 Samuel chapter 23, verses 20 and 21, one of David's mighty men, Benaiah, is mentioned as having killed a lion in a pit on a snowy day. And later in 2 Kings 3, we see that Moab eventually rebelled against Israel after the death of King Ahab of Israel. David's conquest of Moab marked an important phase in his military campaigns. Through this victory, he not only expanded Israel's borders, but also demonstrated his ability to subdue neighboring kingdoms. The Moabites became his vassals, and their tribute served to strengthen Israel's position. These events are part of David's larger efforts to consolidate his reign, as most kings do, and ensure peace and stability for the kingdom of Israel. Now we move on to King David's battles with the Ammonites. And this is significant as well. The Ammonites were a neighboring people east of Israel, descendants of Lot. Their relationship with Israel was often hostile, and David's dealings with them, his interactions with them, are recorded and written down in 2 Samuel and 1 Chronicle. The initial conflict with Ammon in 2 Samuel chapter 10, verses 1 and 5, and 1 Chronicles 19, 1 through 5, the conflict with them begins with the death of King Nahash of Ammon. His son Hanun succeeded him, and David sent envoys to comfort him. However, this gesture of peace turned into conflict due to a misunderstanding and the insult of David's ambassadors. In 2 Samuel chapter 10, verses 1 and 5, it reads, "And it came to pass after this that the king of the children of Ammon died, and Hanun his son reigned in his stead. Then said David, I will show kindness unto Hanun the son of Nahash, as his father showed kindness unto me. And David sent to comfort him by the hand of his servants for his father. And David's servants came into the land of the children of Ammon. And the princes of the children of Ammon said unto Hanun, Thinkest thou that David doth honor thy father, that he hath sent comforters unto thee? Hath not David rather sent his servants unto thee, to search the city, and to spy it out, and to overthrow it? Wherefore Hanun took David's servants, and shaved off the one half of their beards, and cut off their garments in the middle, even to their buttocks, and sent them away. When they told it unto David, he sent to meet them, because the men were greatly ashamed. And the king said, Tarry at Jericho until your beards be grown, and then return. I guess my beard is biblical. 1 Chronicles chapter 19, verses 1 through 5. Now it came to pass after this that Nahash, the king of the children of Ammon, died, and his son reigned in his stead. And David said, I will show kindness unto Hanun, the son of Nahash, because his father showed kindness unto me. And David sent messengers to comfort him concerning his father. And David's servants came into the land of the children of Ammon to Hanun to comfort him. Why am I reading you this? Because it's just another reading of that puts it together. But the princes of the children of Ammon said to Hanun, Thinkest thou that David doth honor thy father, that he hath sent comforters unto thee? Are not his servants come unto thee for to search, and to overthrow, and to spy out the land? Wherefore Hanun took David's servants and shaved them, and cut off their garments in the midst, hard by their buttocks, and sent them away. Then there went certain, and told David how the men were served, and he sent to meet them, for the men were greatly ashamed. And the king said, Tarry at Jericho until your beards be grown, and then return. After King Nahash of the Ammonites died, David sought to extend his kindness to his son, Hanun, in honor of the kindness shown to him by his father Nahash. David sent these ambassadors out of kindness to comfort him. But as it would often be along the way in life, Hanun's advisors persuaded him to view the gesture as a potential espionage plot, as a conspiracy and everything, instead of a sincere offer of friendship. And as a result, Hanun humiliated David's messengers by shaving half of their beards and cutting off their garments in such an awful and shameful manner. However, David's response, even though David was greatly displeased and instructed his men to stay in Jericho until the beards grew back, because of that sign of disgrace, the insult did not go unanswered. And this incident set the stage for a military conflict, which leads to David's war with the Ammonites. The insult that was put upon David's messengers led to war. The Ammonites, expecting an attack, hired mercenaries from the Syrians to bolster their forces. The Syrians are a very dangerous crowd. In 2 Samuel chapter 10, verses 6 through 14, and it reads, And when the children of Ammon saw that they stank before David, the children of Ammon sent and hired the Syrians of Bethrehob and the Syrians of Zobah, 20,000 footmen, and of King Maacah 1,000 men, and of Ishtob 12,000 men. And when David heard of it, he sent Joab and all the host of the mighty men. And the children of Ammon came out and put the battle in array at the entering in of the gate. And the Syrians of Zobah and of Rehob and Ishtob and Maacah were by themselves in the field. When Joab saw that the battle was against him before and behind, he chose of all the choice men of Israel and put them in array against the Syrians. And the rest of the people he delivered into the hand of Abishai his brother, that he might put them in array against the children of Ammon. And he said, If the Syrians be too strong for me, then thou shalt help me. But if the children of Ammon be too strong for thee, then I will come and help thee. Be of good courage, and let us play the men for our people, and for the cities of our God, and the Lord do that which seemeth him good. So Joab and the people that were with him drew nigh before the Syrians unto the battle, and they fled before him. And when the children of Ammon saw that the Syrians were fled, then fled they also before Abishai, and entered into the city. So Joab returned from the children of Ammon and came to Jerusalem. In 1 Chronicles chapter 19, verses 6 through 15, it reads, And when the children of Ammon saw that they stank before David, the children of Ammon sent and hired the Syrians of Bethrehob and the Syrians of Zobah, 20,000 footmen, and of King Maacah 1,000 men, and of Ishtob 12,000 men. And when David heard of it, he sent Joab and all the host of the mighty men. And the children of Ammon came out, and put the battle in array at the entering of the gate. And the Syrians of Zobah, and of Rehob, and Ishtob, and Maacah were by themselves in the field. And when Joab saw that the battle was set against him before and behind, he chose of all the choice men of Israel, and put them in array against the Syrians. And the rest of the people he delivered into the hand of Abishai his brother, that he might put them in array against the children of Ammon. And he said, If the Syrians be too strong for me, then thou shalt help me. But if the children of Ammon be too strong for thee, then I will help thee. Be of good courage, and let us behave ourselves valiantly for our people, and for the cities of our God. And let the Lord do that which is good in his sight. So Joab and the people that were with him drew nigh before the Syrians unto the battle, and they fled before him. And when the children of Ammon saw that the Syrians were fled, then fled they also before Abishai, and entered into the city. So Joab returned from the children of Ammon and came to Jerusalem. When the Amorites saw that David was angered by their actions, they hired these Syrian mercenaries to bolster their forces. An alliance, if you will. And David responded by sending his general, Joab, to confront him. Joab divided his forces to fight both the Ammonites and the Syrian allies. He faced the Syrians in the field and the Ammonites at the city gates. The strategy was successful. When the Syrians fled, the Ammonites, seeing their allies defeated, also fled into their cities. Joab's forces defeated both the Syrians and the Ammonites, and the Ammonites were forced to retreat into their city, effectively ending the immediate threat. And Joab returned to Jerusalem, or I should say to Jerusalem. The war with the Ammonites continued after this battle, of course, and eventually David himself led the final assault on their capital city, Rabbah. In 2 Samuel, chapter 12, verses 26 through 31, and it reads, And Joab fought against Rabbah of the children of Ammon, and took the royal city. And Joab sent messengers to David, and said, I have fought against Rabbah, and I have taken the city of waters. Now therefore gather the rest of the people together, and encamp against the city, and take it, lest I take the city, and it be called after my name. And David gathered all the people together, and went to Rabbah, and fought against it, and took it. And he took their king's crown from off his head, the weight whereof was a talent of gold, with the precious stones, and it was set on David's head. And he brought forth the spoil of the city in great abundance. And he brought forth the people that were therein, and put them under saws, and under arrows of iron, and under axes of iron, and made them pass through the bricklin. And thus did he unto all the cities of the children of Ammon. So David and all the peoples returned unto Jerusalem. In 1 Chronicles chapter 20, verses 1 and 3, and it reads, And it came to pass that after the year was expired, at the time that kings go out to battle, Joab led forth the power of the army, and wasted the country of the children of Ammon, and came and besieged Rabbah. But David tarried at Jerusalem, and Joab smote Rabbah, and destroyed it. And David took the crown of their king from off his head, and found it to weigh a talent of gold. And there were precious stones in it, and it was set upon David's head. And he brought also exceeding much spoil out of the city. And he brought out the people that were in it, and cut them with saws, and with harrows of iron, and with axes. Even so dealt David with all the cities of the children of Ammon. And David and all the people returned to Jerusalem. After Joab's final victories, the siege of Rabbah, the Ammonite capital, continued. And as previously said, eventually David led the final attack and took the city. David took the crown of the Ammonite king, which was made of gold and precious stones, and then it was placed upon David's head as a symbol of victory, and he defeated the Ammonites. Now, one could say that there was a harsh treatment of the captives, but as was common in ancient warfare, the Ammonite people were treated harshly. They were put to forced labor, subjected to physical torment, and forced to work in bricklands. When we come to the conclusion of David's battle with the Ammonites, and how it was a significant part of his military campaign, the initial conflict arose from simply a diplomatic insult, but it escalated into a full-scale war. David's forces, under the leadership of Joab, eventually defeated the Ammonites and their Syrian allies. The final conquest of Rabbah marked the end of the Ammonite threat and further expanded David's kingdom. The crown taken from the Ammonite king symbolized Israel's victory. Now we move on to the king, to King David's battles with Edom. And they are recorded in 2 Samuel 8 and 1 Chronicles 18. In these two verses, it'll describe his military victories over the Edomites as part of his larger campaign to secure Israel's borders and establish his authority over surrounding nations. Edom was a kingdom located in the southeast of Israel, often in conflict with Israel and Judah, especially in the periods of David's reign. When we begin to talk about David's campaign against Edom, which again will be found in 2 Samuel chapter 8 and 1 Chronicles chapter 18, the passage will describe how David defeated Edom and established control over the region. In 2 Samuel chapter 8, verses 13 through 14, and it reads, "And David gat him a name when he returned from smiting of the Syrians in the valley of Salt, being 18,000 men. And he put garrisons in Edom, throughout all Edom put he garrisons, and all they of Edom became David's servants. And the Lord preserved David whithersoever he went." In 1 Chronicles chapter 18, verses 12 and 13, it reads, "Moreover, Abishai the son of Zeruiah slew of the Edomites in the valley of Salt 18,000. And he put garrisons in Edom, and all the Edomites became David's servants. And the Lord gave victory to David whithersoever he went." When we put a summary, I guess you can say, of the Edomite campaign, especially with the battle, David's conflict with Edom was part of his broader military campaign to subdue the nations surrounding Israel. After David's victory over the Syrians in the Valley of Salt, he turned his attention to Edom. And according to Scripture, David defeated the Edomites in battle, killing 18,000 of their soldiers. It's a rather significant blow to the Edomite kingdom. After his victory, David placed garrisons in Edom, essentially establishing Israelite control over the territory. These military posts ensured that Edom would not rebel against Israel and served to integrate Edom into the broader sphere of Israel's power. This is an indication, or at least it should be an indication, that the Edomites were effectively made vassals of Israel, paying tribute to David and serving his kingdom. Both passages emphasize that the Lord preserved David whithersoever he went, indicating that David's victories were not just due to his military prowess, but were also attributed to the divine support and blessing of God. David's success in these campaigns was seen as a sign of God's favor and his rightful reign as king of Israel. When it comes to the aftermath of this victory, and after the defeat of Edom, David's reign was solidified, and Edom remained under Israelite control for a time. David's military victories extended the borders of Israel and brought peace to the region, with neighboring nations acknowledging Israel's power. However, Edom would eventually rebel against Israel during the reign of David's son, King Solomon. And that happened in 1 Kings chapter 11. But that's beyond this particular immediate scope of David's victories. I'm sure we'll talk about it down the road. When we talk about the significance of the victory over Edom, we talk about, or we should hone in on David's conquest of Edom, as it marked a significant expansion of Israel's territorial influence to the south and southeast, strengthening the kingdom and securing its borders. The victory over Edom further established David's reputation as a great military leader, fulfilling the prophetic word that David would be the one to subdue Israel's enemies, which was mentioned in 2 Samuel chapter 7. It demonstrated his ability to unite the tribes of Israel and defeat formidable enemies on multiple fronts. The victories over Edom, as with David's other battles, were seen as evidence of God's support of David's kingship. The Lord's intervention in these military campaigns underscored the greater message that Israel's success was a result of God's blessing, especially as David followed God's command and commands and sought his guidance. While the King James Bible accounts in 2 Samuel chapter 8 and 1 Chronicles chapter 18 focus on David's triumph over Edom, there are later chapters in the Bible that mention the ongoing tension between Israel and Edom, notably in 1 Kings chapter 11 after David's death, when King Solomon faced the rebellion from Edom, which had been subdued under David but later rose up again. This was partly due to the Edomites' resentment of Israel's dominance. The Edomites, of course, would eventually regain some autonomy in later generation, as will be spoken about in 2 Kings. But I'm going to go ahead and sum this up now to come to the conclusion. And David's military campaigns, including his defeat of Edom, were key to the consolidation of his kingdom and the expansion of Israel's influence. His victory over Edom, along with his other military conquest, helped establish Israel as a dominant force in the region. The garrisons placed in Edom and the tribute paid by the Edomites were symbols of Israelites' sovereignty and a reminder of God's favor upon David and his kingdom. David's successes in battle were not merely just military achievements, but were seen as signs of blessings and fulfillment of God's promise to Israel, and it remains today. Thank you for listening to me this evening. I appreciate you sticking through this 35-minute video. I'm grateful and thankful as always that you take the time to listen. God bless, and have a beautiful day.